Hi there, my name's Alistair Kennedy and I'm the Sociable Social Worker, and I give practical advice to those who want to foster and adopt and to social workers. And today's video is a social work video, but it's also a foster carer video and an adopter video all mixed into one, and it's about matching children with the right carers. And this came from my Twitter feed, again from Katie Fisher in Doncaster. Thank you, Katie. And it's going to be a bit of a longer video because matching I can't really do in a small video. I can't do it justice. Okay, let's get on with it. So, matching children with the right family. How do you do it? I think this video actually might be quite good for some of your placement teams to watch, and maybe their induction team. I know that sounds a bit big-headed, but it might actually be useful for them when they're actually coming to place a child in fostering and maybe even in adoption. I used to run a fostering agency that had up to 1,800 children in it and about 200 staff, and one of the key priorities for me was working really closely with my placement teams because they were the hub of the agency, and without getting that right, without getting the placements and the referrals correct, nothing else worked. A bit like working with the admin teams, the pure hub and the knowledge base is there. So firstly, we made sure that participation was key, and I'm a huge believer in participation, and that a child knows where they're going and they can choose their placement if possible, if it's not an emergency placement. And I remember this from being a real basic grade social worker, and I started in Glasgow, and we used to have to take children to fostering placements, and I remember them being absolutely terrified in the back of the car. So I always think that we need to always speak to the child or the young person, and that they have all the information that they need so that they can understand where they're going, who they're going to live with, or that they can choose where they're going and who they can live with. And actually recently I was working with an agency, a fostering agency, and it was I just decided to do it. I thought, why don't we make a welcome book video? Why don't we do that about the carer, and so that they can show to the child. And I mean, it only took, I think it's like a 3-minute video, and it only took a couple of minutes to actually do. We took some photos, put it into video format, and made it age appropriate for different ages. But actually crucially you could share it with children on their phone, which, let's face it, kids are always on their phone nowadays. And the fostering agency was very grateful for that. And it was, I suppose, I don't know if any other people are doing it, but it was quite innovative for that fostering agency. But when you get the referral, there's no shortcuts at the early stage. You know that. There can't be, because legislatively we've got to follow national minimum standards. If it's fostering, we've got to follow care planning. So it's actually in law that we have to look at safeguarding, education, health, leisure, and we need to plan it all, and all needs to be detailed in a child's care plan, and with the social worker, the supervising social worker, and the foster carers. And if you're a social worker in an agency or a local authority, we all have defined responsibilities that all overlap. Plus, we always need the involvement of other professionals who, we always say, are the team around the child. So teachers, health professionals, therapists. And my experience is that we don't get this first bit right and have the team around the child, then it creates friction with the child, and the placement could break down because we've rushed into it, or there's been incomplete preparation. I believe that carers should be chosen really carefully for their traits, and those traits include consistency, reliability, resilience, security, attentiveness, friendliness, and empathy. Because without all those traits, how are they supposed to build friendships? How are they supposed to build trust? And crucially, with traumatised children. Information sharing is a prerequisite for good and successful placements. Time and time again, you always hear from foster carers who say, I never got the information. They told me this, but this is what I've got. I didn't know this. If information in a particular area isn't available, then it could be shared later on down the line. And often it's not really the social workers or the supervising social worker's fault. Sometimes it can be an emergency placement, and they just don't have the detail. They just don't have that detail because the child's been removed quickly. And some carers take not having a lot of information in their stride, others don't, and that should be part of your matching decision. The best way to clarify a children's needs and ensure that a placement is successful and that the placement plan meets their needs is to hold a placement planning meeting. These have fallen by the wayside, particularly during COVID-19, but I think before even COVID-19 they had fallen by the wayside. And the foster carer, supervising social worker, the child's social worker, and potentially even the birth family should be included. And the child or children should be able to participate given their age and development. And I think that's really important. They need to have a say in where they're going and who they're going to live with, because they might not just gel, and possibly having a longer pre-planning session and introductions. That isn't always the case. Obviously we talked about emergency placements, but I still think it's important that at the end of the meeting the child is able to say and is recorded in the conclusions about what's happening to them. In a successful matching, foster carers should be able to make decisions for the children that they've got in their care. Time and time again we see that delegated authority is pretty much lip service. Some people do it really well, but other local authorities and agencies just don't really understand what delegated authority really is. What they think about it is like, well, the child can get a haircut, or the child can visit their pal at a certain time of day, or this is the contact arrangement. It's much, much more than that. Foster carers should be enabled and supported to make really planned decisions for children and young people. If there's a proper delegated authority agreement and there's proper risk assessment in place, it's not so much about the decision making as such. It's not about the decisions themselves, but it's about that creation of that delegation authority and maintaining it, and everybody should be actively working with that document and as a live tool. So there you have it, a pretty condensed list of how we match children, or how we should match children, and some ideas and tips for those who are social workers or foster carers or adopters. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you want to subscribe, please subscribe, and if you want notifications, ring the little bell. Ding-a-ling-a-ling. Okay, thanks for your time.